Hey guys, my name is Drew and this is my 1968 911S project. This car I've had for about 3 years and I acquired it from a friend of mine's family who has had the car for approximately 30 years prior to that, and it had been sitting outside for a significant period of time. I'll put up some pictures of how the car looked originally and some of the earliest pictures that I have going back to about 2006 from that family. And this car obviously had quite a bit of problems with it. You can see I knew that up front, and I traded my 2013 Ford Raptor and some cash, I'll show you guys some pictures of that as well, for this car. And you guys might call me crazy, but I'm a Porsche nut and I couldn't pass up the opportunity to take on this project. I pursued it for a few years before I actually was able to acquire the car. And initially the plan was to just get the car running and driving. And so for the first year, that's what I did. And I had a lot of help from friends and family, but we were able to get the car driving. And it was about that time we discovered some more significant rust that indicated there were some structural issues with the car, mainly around the torsion tube, which we'll get into in a minute. I can show you guys pictures of right now. But the plan now going forward is obviously we've torn the car down to just the tub and we need to repair all of the rust. And this is not something I've ever done. It's not something I have experience with, but YouTube has been able to teach me a lot of the stuff I know around cars. So we're going to continue that and learn as much as we can and take a shot at fixing this stuff. And it doesn't really matter how long it takes to fix it. We're gonna do it right, and we're gonna do it ourselves. So why don't you guys come along with me and we'll figure out what's going on with this car. So today I'd just like to explain the rust that I found that was significant and basically explain some of the more critical parts of the bodywork that we have to do, mainly around the torsion tube replacement. So I wanna walk through how I'm gonna do that, how I plan to do that, and then maybe we can cut open the longitudinals in the same area and figure out how far the rust is permeating. So we're at the rear of the car right now, and down here, I don't know how much you guys know about 911 suspensions or air-cooled 911 suspensions, but this bar running across here is called the torsion tube. And what it does is house the torsion bars, which is essentially the spring for the rear suspension. The front and the rear have torsion suspension, torsion springs. So these mounts here mount some of the arms that go back to the rear suspension, and the transmission mounts to where these bolts are here. And essentially we found some structural rust. Kind of hard to pick up here, but you can kind of see, can I get my finger there? Right here, there is some spots where the rust has eaten through this tube. Obviously, we don't want the transmission coming loose, one of these brackets breaking off and causing some real problems. So we have to take a step back and tear it down and fix this problem before we can proceed. So there's a lot that goes into replacing the tube, and kind of the first piece of the puzzle is this dolly that I built. A friend of mine helped me come up with the idea. We're basically pinching on the seams of the floor pan right there on either side of the car to support the entire weight of the car. And then secondarily, I kind of welded up this support here. So basically this locates the torsion tube mounting points for the transmission in space, right? So then we can take these bolts out, we can cut all this damaged area out with the tube and these longitudinals here on the side, which are welding them into the main structure of the body. And with the old torsion tube in, we can take a new torsion tube. It's actually not new, but it's from a different car. We can put that in, mount it to these 2 points, and then theoretically it should put it back into the same physical space where the current one lives. Yeah, it's very important because it affects the rear alignment and basically where the engine and transmission are going to be mounted to the car. So it's extremely important to physically put the new torsion tube back into the same spot. Now, normally you would use a select bench, which is basically a frame jig, and it has custom tooling, fixturing, that locates some of these essential points in space all over the body at the same time. That way you can mount the front pan in there, get it located correctly, use the rear engine mounting locations all of those things to triangulate where you need the new torsion tube to go. But since we don't have that equipment, we're basically doing it, I guess, the jerry-rigged way. And this is how we're gonna try and tackle that. So boom, there it is. This is a torsion tube out of a 1967 912 actually, which is a car that I bought. Just the chassis was crashed and had some parts that I could extract for this project. So this is the torsion tube. Pretty hard to come by getting an original factory tube. You have to basically find a car, and not all these cars are coming off the road these days. So luckily I was able to pick this up, and if you can imagine, this looks the exact same as what's in there. So we need to cut this tube out, which basically involves these longitudinals, which is the main structure of the entire car. And there are 3 layers that make up the location where this tube, you can see right here, this is where the tube comes out, where this tube is welded to the actual car, right? So we have one here on the exterior, there's an internal one, which we cannot see, and then there's the inside longitudinal, which has a weld that runs all the way around through here. So basically what we have to do is extract the tube by cutting all these layers out, and we'll be left with basically a gaping hole, which we can drop this guy into. Now, obviously we have to replace the sheet metal here on the longitudinal, which I have placed in order through Restoration Design to get 2 of the 3 layers. They don't sell the inside longitudinal for the short wheelbase cars, unfortunately. So we're gonna have to try and, I guess, keep the internal ones intact as best as we can. And that's my plan going forward. Now, obviously this car has some major rust problems. I mean, we didn't even address it, but you can see these are the rear seats here. There is no rear seat. This car has a storied, well, maybe I wouldn't say storied because I don't know the story that much, but for the past 30 years, it's been sitting in the desert outside where it saw all kinds of temperatures, snow, heat. And so there are a few, like, I guess, I don't know if you want to call them Easter eggs, but clues and things that are potentially sketchy about this problem. One of those details or Easter eggs is the fact that someone has been inside this longitudinal before. So at some point in the past, someone went in here and did some rust repair, or had something that they had to do to get inside. They had to do something inside the longitudinal. So hopefully they buttoned this up. So no real plan today, but what I wanted to do maybe is just let's get into this thing. Let's clear up some of the debris and build up on the car that's been there for a while, and expose any more problems that we have, and maybe potentially cut into these longitudinals and see what we look like on the inside. It's going to tell us a lot more about kind of the history and how much work we're in for, because we could find a lot more problems when we start opening this thing up. So if there's anything this car has taught me so far, it's that expect there to be rust. Even though you think you've seen it all, you're going to find more. So let's see what we find. So let's start over here on the passenger side, and let's just take the wire wheel to this. Let's get some of this grime off there. I think I see something happening similar to the driver's side that I just showed you. It looks like there's a patch here, but I think we won't really know the extent of some of the other work that's gone on in the car until we get rid of some of this stuff. So let's cut to, hopefully when I come back, it's all cleaned up. So, surprise, surprise, what do we find? A little bit more rust and some previous work. Let's see. All right, got a little bit cleaned up here. Hopefully it looks different to y'all. And we definitely exposed some non-factory welding going on here. Some patchwork or something like that going on. I guess I expected that. The other side looks similar. It kind of runs along the bottom here. And one thing that's kind of, you can see from this angle, is this whole piece of longitudinal, this is actually the floor pan coming in. Both of those pieces are kind of jutted in, right? So something has impacted it. It's been weakened, something hit it, and it's been impacted. Not only that though, is we found some actual holes. So again, this is the floor pan, full holes straight through. And then also in the bottom of the longitudinal here, we have some gaping holes. Now it's funny though, this actually coincides, if we go inside here, with some rust that I had already known about here. And I would guess that whatever water source or, whatever caused this rust problem, it permeated through this location on the car. Now, I had known about this spot, right? So I had gone into the 912 that I mentioned previously and pulled a piece to patch this side. So we knew about that. We just didn't know about some of this stuff here on the bottom. So I guess not really anything unexpected. I think the one thing I am now thinking about is this piece that I bought, the replacement sheet metal. Is it going to be far enough along the length that I can use it for the patch here? And I will have to look at the part, and I'm supposed to get it next week, so we'll have it in hand very soon. We can try and figure out whether that piece is going to, extend far enough for us to be able to make the patch with it, or we're going to have to actually fabricate something, which is something I definitely haven't done. So that would be a fun learning experience as well. We'll see how that all shakes out. But let's just continue here. I actually would like to cut into this thing. Let's figure out what the insides look like. Obviously, the torsion tube itself, that's all rust. I don't know if I captured that, but there's quite a bit of rust in this tube. So more hints that the tube has to go and that we have quite a bit of work here in front of us. All right, there's a little smoke in the air still. I just cut a little piece, a little patch spot out of here. We're gonna open up together, see what's in there. We'll both see it together for the first time. Let's do it. All right, let's see if we can't wrench this thing out of here. Might take me a second. Yeah, here we go. Looks like maybe they patched right over the top of whatever was there and rusty. We're still kind of connected. There were some welds that I kind of cut through in this area. So I'm not surprised that we're still attached here, but we can kind of see some evidence. Let's see if we can get some extra light in there. All right, guys, I got better light now. And I pulled this panel down. We can finally see there's some rust here. But I think the good news is that internally, not a lot else looks welded, or not welded, rusted. So I've got my flashlight pushed up in there. I could see a hole from the other side, and boom, we've got light. So we're now inside the longitudinal, and I don't think it's as bad as I thought it would be. So let's continue to investigate here. All right, so we just popped the passenger longitudinal open. Let's go ahead and do the driver's side now. All right, I think this is pretty interesting. It's a little bit different than the other side, actually. I did a little more digging, and we can now see the three layers that I've been talking about this whole video. We've got your outer one here, and then we have an inner one that's internal, and then we have the inside one all the way on the inside. Now, there is something that is different about between the different layers. This looks pretty rust-free. It looks just like primer. There's a little spot right there. You can see that kind of triangle shape tapering down. There's a little bit of rust that would be a little bit different than the primer, but definitely on this other side, let's see if I can actually, you can see it looks a little bit, it's definitely a different texture in there. Definitely more rust. So a little different here. On the other side, we couldn't see through the internal piece of sheet metal. This side's rusted a little bit more, so we can see through. But I think it's just interesting to see a cross-section of kind of how these layers come together to form the main longitudinal. All right, so basically we found some more rust, as expected. Now, the rest of the sheet metal comes in later this week, or next week. So we will, at that point, have everything we need to be able to do the full torsion tube replacement. It's going to be a little bit longer of a process. I'm going to be methodical, and I have to basically exercise sheet metal welding skills, which I'm just starting to pick up. So it's going to be a process, but we're going to get there. And I guess I'm thinking about making another video where I just kind of go through the car and show all the different areas of rust, maybe put together a little bit of a plan on how we would tackle each of those pieces. It's kind of interesting to figure out the order of operations is a big piece of this whole process, is what I'm learning. And the sheet metal kind of goes together in almost like a puzzle. Certain pieces are put on after parts that were already there. So there's an order to this whole thing. And it might be nice to see a little bit of detail applied to how we're going to tackle some of the problems, because there's a lot of different areas all over the car that have rust and will need to be repaired. And then I'm also thinking about whether we just kind of go into the history of this particular car, explain how I ended up with the car, maybe show some pictures dating back as far as I can of the state of the car when I got it and prior to that. So let me know if you enjoyed this video. We can do more, or if there's any other ways I could do it that may be more appealing, let me know. And I guess I will see you guys in the next video.